He has the money, the house, the verified badge, the private jet, and the handshake that everyone wants to photograph. And at 3 in the morning, he is awake staring at a ceiling he paid too much for, wondering why the silence sounds like a verdict. This is not a story about a man who lost everything, because that story at least has movement and stakes and the dignity of a fall. This is a story about a man who won everything and discovered that the trophy was hollow, that the finish line was drawn by people who had already given up, that the mountain he climbed was a sandcastle, and the tide was coming in whether he moved or not. Welcome to the golden trap, the most dangerous place a human being can occupy, not because it hurts, but because it does not hurt enough to make you leave. The most dangerous place is not failure. It is success without meaning. It is comfort without growth. It is arrival without a reason to keep walking. Society has sold you a blueprint, a carefully engineered path from cradle to grave that promises safety at every turn and demands only that you stop asking dangerous questions. Get the degree, get the job, get the promotion, get the validation. And somewhere between the first paycheck and the corner office, you stopped asking the only question that matters. Not what do I have, but what am I becoming? Success is a finish line that someone else drew in the sand, a mirage that keeps moving backward the moment you reach it, always promising that the next milestone will finally be enough, while quietly stealing the years you spent believing it. Greatness is a path that you carve through stone with your own bleeding hands, a direction that does not require a destination, because the walking itself is the point, because the person you become while walking is the only reward that does not rust. And the terrifying truth is this: most people do not fail. They succeed at the wrong thing at the right time for so long that they forget they ever wanted something else, that there was ever a version of themselves who dreamed of more than a bigger cage. They become prisoners of their own victories, unable to leave the cell because they built it themselves and hung the key on the wall like a decoration they were too comfortable to use. The peak is not the destination. The peak is the most dangerous place to stop, because from the top of the wrong mountain, every direction looks like down. And the only thing more terrifying than falling is the realization that you have nowhere left to climb. To understand the crucible, you have to understand what comfort actually costs, because comfort is not neutral and it is not a harmless state of being. Comfort is a slow-acting poison that convinces you that stillness is safety while your soul is quietly starving, that the absence of pain is the same as the presence of peace, that the warm bed is a reward rather than a trap you are too tired to crawl out of. In 1915, Ernest Shackleton stood on the deck of a ship being crushed by Antarctic ice, watching the timbers groan and splinter under pressure that no human engineering was designed to withstand, knowing that every decision he had made had led him to this exact moment of impossible choice. He was not supposed to be there. He had every reason to turn back. Every rational voice, including the ones inside his own head, told him that survival was the only victory worth pursuing, that pride was a luxury for men who did not have to keep 27 other men alive in conditions that killed for sport. But Shackleton did not sail into the ice for safety. He sailed into it because there was a version of himself that only existed on the other side of impossible, a man who could only be forged in the one place where maps ended and instinct began, where the only navigation tool left was the part of him that refused to quit. For 10 months, his crew drifted on ice floes in temperatures that could kill a man in minutes, their ship gone, their position unknown, their rescue uncertain, their future a blank page written in frost. They ate seal meat and wore clothes frozen to their bodies. They watched their own fingers turn black with frostbite and kept moving anyway. No one clapped. No one watched. There were no metrics to optimize, no followers to impress, no quarterly reports to file, no algorithm to reward their persistence with a dopamine hit. And in that frozen hell, something happened that comfort could never provide. They discovered who they were when everything external was stripped away, when the only scoreboard was survival and the only reward was the sunrise, when the only question that mattered was whether you would get up one more time than you fell down. Shackleton later wrote that the only thing that kept them alive was not hope. It was the refusal to let the circumstances define their character. It was the decision, made again every morning with frozen breath and shaking hands, that they would not become the kind of men who died sitting down. This is the crucible nobody warns you about, the middle. The long empty corridor between the life you left and the life you cannot yet see, where the lights are out and the exit signs are written in a language you have not learned, and the air smells like everything you are afraid of. In that corridor, doubt is your only roommate. In that corridor there are no likes, no shares, no quarterly bonuses, no warm reassurances that you are on the right track, no external validation to tell you that the pain has a purpose. There is only the sound of your own footsteps and the terrifying question of whether you have the stamina to keep walking when every instinct tells you to turn back, to go home, to accept the life you already know, because at least it does not hurt this much. The psychology of the middle is brutal. Your brain is designed to seek completion, closure, and social proof, to release dopamine when you finish tasks and receive validation from the tribe, to reward you for staying safe and punish you for stepping outside the perimeter. The middle offers none of these. It offers only the slow, grinding truth that transformation happens in the dark, long before anyone sees the light, in the hours when you are alone with your own inadequacy, and the only voice you hear is the one asking why you thought you were special enough to try. Most people turn back here, not because they lack talent, not because they lack resources, but because the silence is louder than the applause ever was, and they have forgotten how to trust a compass that points inward instead of toward the nearest exit. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard understood this dynamic profoundly when he wrote that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. You are always walking blind into the crucible, never knowing if the fire will forge you or consume you, never certain whether the pain is the price of growth or simply the universe telling you to quit while you still can. Now we arrive at the architecture. Success asks, what do I get? Greatness asks, what do I give? And the distance between those two questions is not a gap. It is a chasm. It is the entire measure of a life. The difference between a footprint that washes away with the tide and a foundation that outlasts the storm, between being remembered for what you took and being remembered for what you built. Consider two men born in the same year, in the same city, with roughly the same intelligence and the same opportunities stretching out before them, like an unwritten map that neither of them knows how to read. One chases comfort. He optimizes his schedule, his investments, his social circle, his diet, his sleep, his entertainment, until every variable is under control and nothing remains that could surprise him, shock him, or demand that he become someone new. He becomes very good at making money and very bad at making meaning. He reads summaries instead of books, networks instead of connects, performs instead of creates, manages instead of leads. He measures his weeks by efficiency and his years by accumulation, and he wonders why the math never adds up to happiness. By 50, he has everything he wanted at 25 and nothing he needs at 50. He is surrounded by people who benefit from his success and isolated from anyone who would challenge it, question it, or remind him that there is a difference between having a life and being alive. The other man chases mastery. He wakes before dawn and trains his mind when the world is still dreaming. He takes on projects that terrify him, not because he is confident, but because he knows that confidence is the consolation prize of people who have stopped growing, who have mistaken familiarity for competence. He surrounds himself with people who challenge him, who see his blind spots and speak to them without flattery, who love him enough to tell him when he is settling for less than he is capable of. He fails publicly, learns privately, and builds quietly. He does not measure his days by what he consumed, but by what he contributed, by whether the world is slightly less broken because he was in it, by whether he left the room better than he found it. By 50, he has built systems that outlast him. He has touched lives he will never meet. He has become the kind of person who makes the world slightly less broken simply by existing in it. Not because he is perfect, but because he is present. Because he chose to matter over choosing to be comfortable. The first man optimized for a 1-year headline. The second man built for a 100-year impact. The difference is not talent. It is not luck. It is not privilege. It is architecture. Greatness is not an event. It is not a moment of glory captured in slow motion while an orchestra swells and the crowd rises to its feet. It is a daily brutal habit. It is the decision to do the difficult thing when the easy thing is right there, smiling at you, offering you a seat and a drink, and the assurance that you have done enough, that you deserve to rest, that no one would blame you for stopping here. It is the refusal to let your standards be set by the people who have already surrendered theirs, the quiet rebellion of holding yourself to a code that no one else can see and no one else will enforce. A code that exists only in the space between who you are and who you know you could be. The psychologist Abraham Maslow described this as the difference between deficiency motivation and growth motivation. One seeks to fill a hole, to acquire what is missing, to reach a state of equilibrium where desire finally goes quiet and you can finally say you have enough. The other seeks to climb a mountain that has no top, to become more than you were yesterday, not because you are incomplete, but because you are alive, because the universe put you here to expand, not to contract. The psychology of legacy is simple but unforgiving. Every day, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. Every choice is a brick in the structure that will either stand for centuries or collapse the moment you stop adding to it. There is no neutral ground. There is no pause button. There is no version of you that stays the same while the world moves on without you. There is only the direction you are moving, and the speed at which you are moving, and whether you are building something that can survive your absence, something that does not need your name to matter. The man chasing comfort adds bricks when someone is watching. The man chasing greatness adds them when no one is, because he knows that the foundation does not care about applause. It only cares about weight. You are now standing at the final threshold. Behind you is the life you know, the safe paycheck, the predictable routine. The identity that everyone around you has learned to depend on, the version of you that fits neatly into their expectations and requires nothing from them that they are not already prepared to give. In front of you is the arena, the place where you will be tested, broken, and remade. The place where the person you were dies so that the person you are capable of becoming can finally take his first breath, his first real step, his first honest look at the world, without the filter of who he was pretending to be. The choice is not between success and greatness. That is a false dichotomy sold to you by people who have already made their choice and need you to validate it, who need you to stay in the cage so they do not have to feel guilty about staying in theirs. The real choice is between a life that ends when you do and a life that echoes long after, between being remembered for what you had and being remembered for what you built, between dying with your potential still inside you and dying empty because you spent every drop of it on something that mattered. The pain of the struggle is not a bug in the system, it is the system. It is the fire that burns away everything that is not essential. It is the pressure that turns coal into diamond. It is the silence that forces you to hear your own voice for the first time, stripped of the noise of other people's opinions and the weight of their limited imaginations, stripped of everything except the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are when no one is watching. Every icon you admire stood at this threshold. Every person who changed the world felt the same fear you are feeling right now, the fear that they were not enough, that they would be laughed at, that they would try and fail and become a cautionary tale instead of a legend, a warning instead of an inspiration, a footnote instead of a chapter. But here is what separates the remembered from the forgotten. The remembered stepped into the arena anyway. Not because they were fearless, not because they had some secret knowledge that you lack, but because they were more afraid of dying without having truly lived than they were of failing in front of an audience that would forget their name in a week. The struggle does not get easier. You get stronger, the doubt does not disappear. You learn to walk with it, to let it ride beside you, like a passenger who never stops talking but never takes the wheel, who complains about every turn but cannot drive. The loneliness does not end. You discover that solitude is where the real work happens, that the most important conversations you will ever have are the ones you have with yourself in the dark. When the mask is off and the pretense is gone, and the only person left to impress is the one who knows all your excuses by heart. And then, something shifts. The pain transforms, the fear becomes fuel, the person you were dies, and the person you were capable of becoming finally takes his place. Not because the world finally recognized him, but because he finally recognized himself. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called this the eternal recurrence, the willingness to live your life exactly as it is, with all its suffering, all its uncertainty, all its crushing weight, again and again for eternity. Not because it is easy, but because you have made it worth the cost. Look at your hands. They are the only hands you will ever have. Look at your days. They are the only days you will ever spend. There will not be a second draft. There will not be a rehearsal where the stakes are lower and the applause is louder and someone tells you that this time does not count. This is it. This is the only run. The world does not need another comfortable man. It does not need another person who optimized for safety and arrived at emptiness, who collected trophies and lost himself in the process. It needs you, not the version of you that fits neatly into the blueprint, not the version that nods along and keeps his head down and waits for permission from people who have never done anything worth permission, the version that breaks the blueprint and builds something the world has never seen. The clock is moving, the arena is open, and the only question left is whether you will step inside or spend the rest of your life telling yourself that you were almost great, almost brave, almost ready. Almost is the most expensive word in the human vocabulary. It costs you everything, and it gives you nothing. It is the graveyard where potential goes to die comfortably. Step inside. The fire is waiting, and so are you.